In the winter of 1899, as the new century approached, an extraordinary document was sealed away in a time capsule. Recently discovered in the archives of a small Eastern European library, this document appears to contain the transcript of an interview with Nikola Tesla, conducted by journalist Edward Williams. Unlike Tesla's well-documented public statements about his inventions, this interview veers into deeply philosophical territory. Mr. Tesla, you've revolutionized our understanding of electricity, but today I want to ask about something more profound, Williams begins. Have your scientific explorations given you any insight into what might happen after we die? Tesla, normally reserved about such matters, surprisingly engaged with the question. I've spent my life studying energy, he replied. And if there's one fundamental truth I've discovered, it's that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only transforms. The human body is an intricate electrical system, generating approximately 100 watts of power at any given moment. What follows in the transcript is Tesla's fascinating theory of consciousness as an electromagnetic phenomenon, one that might not terminate with bodily death. The interview reveals a side of Tesla rarely seen in historical accounts, a man whose scientific genius led him to profound metaphysical insights that were far ahead of his time. As we explore these revelations, we'll discover how Tesla's understanding of electrical resonance and energy conservation shaped his unique perspective on life after death, a perspective that bridges science and spirituality in unexpected ways. The human body, Tesla explained in the interview, is not merely biological, it's electrical in nature. The brain functions through electrical impulses, the heart beats through electrical signals, and our nervous system is essentially an electrical network. Tesla believed that human consciousness was fundamentally an electromagnetic phenomenon. He described how our thoughts, memories, and very identity exist as complex electrical patterns that might persist in some form even after physical death. Consider what happens when you play a note on a violin, Tesla told Williams. The vibration doesn't simply disappear when the sound fades. It continues to resonate through the air, affecting other objects, sometimes triggering sympathetic vibrations in distant instruments. What we call death may be similar, the cessation of bodily function, but not necessarily the end of the energy pattern that constitutes our consciousness. Tesla went on to describe experiments he'd conducted measuring the electromagnetic fields generated by various organisms. He was particularly interested in the electromagnetic signature of the human brain, which he found remarkably complex and distinct from other electrical patterns in nature. Each human mind generates a unique electromagnetic signature, Tesla noted. It's as individual as a fingerprint. This signature contains everything that makes us who we are, our memories, personality, and accumulated knowledge. What happens to this energy when we die? Contemporary science has no answer, but I propose it transforms rather than vanishes. According to Tesla, our scientific understanding of consciousness was primitive, focused too much on biochemistry, and not enough on the electromagnetic properties that he believed were central to human existence. In the interview, Tesla described his theory of transdimensional resonance, the idea that consciousness might continue to exist on a different frequency or dimension after physical death. Every electrical system has a resonant frequency, Tesla explained. When you match that frequency with an external force, you get resonance, a powerful amplification effect. I believe human consciousness operates on specific frequencies during life, but at death, this frequency shifts to a spectrum beyond our current ability to detect. Tesla drew parallels to radio transmission, one of his areas of expertise. Consider how radio waves pass through solid objects and travel vast distances, carrying information that can be decoded with the right receiver. Perhaps consciousness works similarly, continuing to broadcast after death on frequencies our current instruments cannot detect. The journalist pressed Tesla on this point. Are you suggesting the human soul is like a radio signal? Not exactly, Tesla replied. I'm suggesting that what we call the soul, might be better understood as an incredibly complex electromagnetic pattern that continues to exist and evolve after biological death. Just as energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed, I believe consciousness transforms rather than terminates. Tesla described experiments with resonant circuits that led him to this theory. He observed how certain energy patterns could jump from one circuit to another without direct connection, what we now call inductive coupling. He speculated that consciousness might operate according to similar principles, capable of coupling with other dimensions or states of existence. The universe vibrates with countless frequencies we cannot perceive, Tesla concluded. Death may simply be a transition to another frequency range. The interview takes a surprising turn when Williams asks Tesla if he has personal experiences that inform his theories. Tesla, normally private about such matters, reveals a near-death experience he had in 1879 when he was severely ill with cholera. "I was at death's door," Tesla recounted. "Doctors had given up hope. During this time, I experienced something remarkable, a separation of consciousness from my body. I could observe myself from above, see the doctors speaking in hushed tones, and even witness my family grieving in an adjacent room." Tesla described moving through a corridor of light, experiencing a profound sense of peace and connectedness to what he called the universal energy field. He encountered geometric patterns of light that seemed to contain vast amounts of information. "What struck me most," Tesla said, "was the overwhelming sense that consciousness isn't confined to the brain. I experienced a vastness of awareness impossible to describe in conventional terms. It was as if my individual mind had accessed a universal database of knowledge." During this experience, Tesla claimed to have received insights into electrical principles that later informed his inventions. "Several of my most significant discoveries came to me during this period, including aspects of alternating current that I'd been struggling to understand." Tesla emphasized that he approached this experience as a scientist, not a mystic. "I don't speak of this in supernatural terms. I believe what I experienced was a glimpse into the electromagnetic nature of consciousness, when the electrical patterns of my brain temporarily operated at a different frequency, allowing access to fields of information normally beyond our perception." This experience profoundly influenced Tesla's later work and his theories about consciousness surviving bodily death. In the interview, Tesla proposed one of his most revolutionary ideas, that the universe itself might function as a vast memory system, preserving information, including human consciousness, indefinitely. "The universe is not empty space," Tesla explained. "It's a medium filled with energy, what some call the ether. This medium records and preserves information through electromagnetic imprinting. Every thought, every action creates ripples in this medium, permanent records that do not fade with time." Tesla described this cosmic memory as analogous to his work with resonant circuits. Just as a tuning fork can make another fork vibrate from across a room if both are calibrated to the same frequency, perhaps consciousness after death resonates with and can be accessed by minds operating at compatible frequencies. The journalist seemed skeptical. "Are you suggesting we could communicate with the dead?" "I'm suggesting something more profound," Tesla replied, "that what we call death may be a transformation rather than an ending. Consciousness might continue to exist in this universal medium, evolving and perhaps even interacting with the physical world in ways we don't yet understand." Tesla then described experiments he'd conducted measuring what he called thought waves, electromagnetic patterns generated by the brain during different mental activities. He was particularly interested in how these patterns seemed to extend beyond the physical confines of the skull. "The brain is not a closed system," Tesla noted. "It generates fields that extend into space. These fields interact with the universal medium, creating permanent impressions. Death may simply be a transition where consciousness continues to exist in this medium without the physical brain that originally generated it." This concept of a universal memory system preserving consciousness after death became central to Tesla's philosophy in his later years. Most scientists dismiss spirituality as superstition, Tesla remarked in the interview, while religious leaders often view science with suspicion. I believe both perspectives miss the truth, that we're approaching the same reality from different angles. Tesla proposed that many spiritual concepts could be understood through the lens of advanced electromagnetic theory. What religions call the soul may be understood scientifically as a complex electromagnetic pattern unique to each individual. What mystics describe as enlightenment might be interpreted as a state where the brain achieves a particular resonant frequency that allows expanded awareness. The concept of an afterlife, Tesla suggested, needn't contradict scientific principles if understood as the persistence of consciousness as an energy pattern. Science acknowledges that energy cannot be destroyed. If consciousness is fundamentally electromagnetic in nature, it follows that it must continue in some form after death. Tesla drew parallels between his scientific work and various spiritual traditions. He noted similarities between his understanding of universal energy fields and ancient concepts like the Hindu prana or Chinese qi. He was particularly interested in how different cultures described near-death experiences with remarkable consistency. These cross-cultural accounts of the afterlife, tunnels of light, encounters with deceased loved ones, feelings of peace and universal connectedness, might be explained by the common electromagnetic nature of human consciousness encountering similar conditions during the transition we call death. Tesla emphasized that his perspective didn't diminish spirituality, but rather provided a framework for understanding it. Science doesn't eliminate wonder, it deepens it. Understanding the electromagnetic basis of consciousness doesn't make it less miraculous. It reveals the elegance of the universe's design. In the most controversial portion of the interview, Tesla discussed the theoretical possibility of communication between the living and the dead, not through supernatural means, but through advanced technology. If consciousness persists after death as an electromagnetic pattern operating at different frequencies, then communication might be possible with sufficiently advanced instruments, Tesla explained. Just as we developed radio to communicate across vast distances, we might eventually develop technology to communicate across dimensional boundaries. Tesla described experimental devices he was developing to detect and measure what he called thought broadcasts, electromagnetic signals generated by conscious minds. He believed these devices might eventually be refined to detect consciousness operating beyond the physical realm. The greatest challenge, Tesla noted, is determining the correct frequency range. The electromagnetic spectrum is vast, and we've only explored a small portion. Consciousness after death may operate at frequencies far beyond our current technology's capabilities. Tesla then outlined a theoretical device he called a thought resonator, a machine designed to achieve resonance with consciousness operating beyond physical frequencies. He described it as incorporating principles from his work with wireless energy transmission and resonant circuits. Such a device would need to be extraordinarily sensitive, Tesla acknowledged. It would need to detect and amplify incredibly subtle electromagnetic patterns. But I believe it's theoretically possible. The journalist asked if Tesla had achieved any success with such devices. Tesla's response was cautious. I've detected anomalous signals that cannot be explained by known phenomena. Whether these represent consciousness operating beyond physical death remains to be proven. But the preliminary results are promising enough to warrant continued investigation. Tesla emphasized that this field of research was in its infancy, but he believed future generations would develop the technology to bridge the gap between dimensions of existence. In the final portion of the interview, Tesla reflected on the implications of his theories about consciousness and death. I don't share these ideas to diminish the grief of losing loved ones, he said. I share them because I believe understanding the nature of consciousness transforms how we approach both life and death. Tesla expressed hope that future generations would continue his research into the electromagnetic nature of consciousness. I may not complete this work in my lifetime, but I believe others will carry it forward. The greatest scientific discoveries often span generations. When asked what message he would leave for future researchers, Tesla offered this: approach the question of consciousness with open minds. Don't be constrained by current scientific paradigms or religious dogma. The truth likely transcends both. Tesla believed his work with electricity was merely the beginning of a much greater scientific revolution, one that would eventually bridge the gap between the physical and non-physical aspects of existence. Electricity was just the first key, he said. It opened the door to understanding energy. The next great frontier is understanding consciousness itself. The interview concludes with Tesla's remarkably optimistic view of death. I don't fear death, he said. I've spent my life studying energy transformation. When my time comes, I view it not as an ending but as a transition. Consciousness continuing its journey in forms we're only beginning to understand. These final words perhaps represent Tesla's most enduring legacy, a vision of death not as oblivion, but as transformation, not as an ending, but as evolution. His perspective offers a rare bridge between scientific inquiry and spiritual hope, suggesting that our understanding of consciousness may be the key to unlocking the greatest mystery of human existence. What began as a scientific career dedicated to harnessing electricity concluded with profound insights into the electrical nature of human consciousness itself. Insights that continue to resonate with those seeking to understand what lies beyond the threshold of death.